Okay, so I just wanted to talk about this part of the story. So I'm at the first day that she's going to school, and I just thought this was really cute. She's sitting there, she's talking to herself. She's like, I can do this. I lied to myself feebly. No one was going to bite me. I think that's a cute little nod to the fact that this is a vampire story. I did think that line was kind of cute. I just thought I'd share that.
Hey, book baddies. So I am actually waiting for my post office to open, and I got about 20 minutes. So I thought I would do an update on reading Twilight. Ooh, you can actually see my phone in the reflection there. So I'm about 100 pages in, and I'm enjoying this a lot more than I thought I would. First of all, I have forgotten how good the banter between Edward and Bella is. I'm just so stuck with the movie because I think I only read this twice before the movie came out. And then since I've seen the movies, I've only tried to reread the series one time. And I got maybe 50 pages into this and I was like, not for me. But I'm really enjoying it this time around. And it's strange to me because also I feel like Bella is way more like snarky, and yeah, she doesn't have a lot of self-confidence, but like she self-deprecates herself, but yet like she'll stand up for herself and what she believes in. And I don't feel like we get that vibe from the movie. And reading the scene where they sit next to each other for the first time in science, it reads a lot better than it was in the movie. It just sounds like he just stiffened and leaned over and stopped breathing. It wasn't the dramatic Edward that we get in the movies. And it seems like they have a lot longer to build their relationship because we're already about 2 months or so since she started school and met Edward, and they still haven't even gotten super flirty or anything. And their back and forth is just a really fun thing to read. I will tell you that I remember the one thing that Bella says, I'm pretty sure through the entire series, if I remember right, that absolutely drives me banana sandwich, and that is holy crow. Now, I understand this is a YA book, and so, of course, these characters are not going to be cussing, and I understand we got to, keep it PG, right? But that absolutely drives me crazy. I know you're trying to be different and not just say holy cow or whatever, but I hate it. Holy crow, for whatever reason, just gives me the ick, and I don't know why. But 100% am absolutely enjoying this more than I thought I would, and it's so interesting to see how much I really have forgotten, and that just sticks in my mind. That's the movie and not the book. And so far, I just feel like anybody who's been thinking about rereading this, absolutely positively do it because I'm having a wonderful time.
Okay, so I haven't gotten that much further into the book. I'm on a page 124. I'm on page 124. And they're going to La Push. We just met Jacob. And something that I did not remember at all was that Jacob had sisters. Rachel and Rebecca? I don't remember that. How did I not remember that? I mean, they don't have it in the movie, and that's what my brain really retained, but that just like kind of threw me for a loop. I had no idea. And Rachel and Rebecca were who Bella was friends with when she would visit her dad in the summertime. That's who she hung out with, not Jacob. So I like that the movie actually had them have memories of each other. I like that Bella and Jacob were kind of friendly from the get-go, unlike in the book. Something else that's starting to come to my noggin as I'm reading is I'm pretty sure in the books I was Team Edward, but when the movies came out, I was Team Jacob. I mean, Taylor Lautner, man, and he grew up so fine. He's aging like a fine wine. Anyways, I also am curious if my teams will change now that I'm an adult myself. Will I be Team Carlisle or Team Charlie or Team somebody else? Or will my feelings just stick from nostalgia? I don't know, but I just thought that was a cool piece of information. I am enjoying reading this way more than I thought I would. So I am 312 pages into the story, and it's shocking to me how much I have forgotten about the book. I think I mentioned in another clip that the movies really have solidified the story for me, and I'm shocked that even I don't remember if I ever thought that the movies were better than the books. I feel like I always thought they were pretty similar, but they're not. One of the biggest things that the movie missed is really the characters of Edward and Bella. They don't come across at all like the same people. With Bella, yes, she's still accident prone and doesn't have a lot of self-esteem in both versions, but in the book, she just comes across like she is more self-assured and able to take care of herself than she does in the movie. I feel like she comes across as more of a damsel in distress in the movies. And an example would be in Port Angeles when the guys are cornering her. In the book, she is plotting. She's like, okay, I have my purse. I could drop it so they could take it or use it as a weapon. Maybe I could pop their eyes out of their socket or hit them in the groin. I need to scream as loud as I can because there are people just down the street. And that's, you know, she would have probably been able to handle herself in that situation before Edward showed up. But in the movie, it just doesn't come across that way. I know we can't be in her inner thoughts all the time in the movie, but I feel like there was a way to portray that better in the movie than they did. And when Mike is talking about how he doesn't like that she is seeing Edward because he looks at her like she's food. Hilarious line, by the way. When she tells him like, hey, that's none of your business. In the movie, I feel like it's almost like she is just making a butthurt comment at him. Like, well, why shouldn't I be with Edward? Whereas in the book, it really does seem like she's just standing up for herself to be like, hey, this is my choice. And she doesn't like that she comes across as mean to Mike, but she's really just trying to be like, hey, it's none of your business, dude, okay? I know we're friendly and stuff, and I know you like me, but like, back off. She comes across so differently in the book. And something I completely forgot was that she's a book lover. When she's in Port Angeles and she decides to go to a bookstore, Jessica and Angela are like, hey, we'll come with you. And she's like, no, I get preoccupied in a bookstore, which relatable. But I feel like that's a really important characteristic of Bella because it's going to be a commonality that her and Edward could potentially share because he's been around for a very long time. I'm sure he's very well read. He doesn't sleep at night. He has to have things to do, right? And so I feel like that's a great place for them to build more of an intense relationship and have something that they both can relate to since they are from different generations. And so I feel like the movies really missed out on a key relationship builder. Maybe that's not important to anybody else, but I feel like it would play a really big role. I don't know if that is a continued thread throughout the book series. I'm just reading Twilight for now, but I feel like that would be a really good place for them to build on. And Edward, too, in the books, he comes across as so much more understanding and gentle and romantic than he does in the movies. You know, there's a lot that's going on with Edward that I feel like is so different. When it comes to him trying to let Bella know and remind her, like, hey, I'm dangerous, right? He takes her to the meadow to show what happens to him in the sun and to really test himself if he will be able to stay around Bella for an extended period of time. And he's running around saying, like, as if you could outrun me. And he's pulling branches out of the forest, right? In the movie, he's just screaming it at her. And I don't feel like it is doing what Edward is supposed to be doing in the movie. It's supposed to be terrifying, right? And in the book, it's a very menacing tone and terrifying moment because he's not screaming at her. He's kind of like, as if you could outrun me. Like the way that it's portrayed in the book, it just seems like, yeah, she should be terrified. It's not just that he has an anger problem. And she should be scared, but I think that she's more able to accept him as a vampire because she's a reader. We're able to suspend our disbelief in such a way as readers, or even sometimes as other artists, that it makes sense. Not only is he alluring because he's a vampire, but she's able to accept him in a way that maybe somebody who isn't able to suspend their disbelief could, you know? And just the way that scene is handled, he's not trying to be mean to her. He's just trying to get her to understand, like, hey, I am dangerous. I am a predator. I could potentially kill you. Like, you shouldn't have come here without telling people that you're here with me because you might not go home. That's how it happens in the book. But during that scene, after this, when they have their first kiss, when Bella becomes so impassioned and really into the kiss and he has to pull away from her and he's like, stop. The way it happens in the book, he pulls away gently from her. He's still touching her, but he's like, hey, like, we need to slow down. This is hard for me. You can tell that there's anguish because he's scared of what he could do, but there's so much care in him for her in that moment. Whereas in the movie, they're in her bedroom and he flies back and hits the wall. And he's like, stop. And it just comes across like Edward is so angsty and has an anger problem in the movie. And it's really hard to understand his battle. I just don't think the movie's portrayed that well enough. Yes, in the book, he still does try to avoid her at first and goes back and forth on whether they should be friends. But the way that he talks to her and their interactions throughout this time make more sense. They are more gentle. There is more of a flirtation between the two of them. Whereas in the movie, I feel like it's almost like they're just fascinated by what's happening. It's not that they have a good chemistry, if that makes sense. And the trope about how Bella is so normal and there's nothing special about her, but everybody wants to be with her, does annoy me. But Edward falling for her makes sense to me. I mean, obviously, he's going to be fascinated by Bella because he can't read her mind. He can read everybody's mind, but not hers. Why is that? That's going to bring the first, like, well, who is this person? That first real intense curiosity about her. And it's probably hard to fall in love with somebody when you can read their mind immediately and know their secrets and know what they think about you. I'm sure that's hard. He's having to go about this in an old-fashioned way. That's the appeal of this for him. And, you know, I just feel like in the books, it's portrayed better that they're fated. Edward talks about how all this time he's never fallen for somebody and it's as if he was waiting for her. And I think that's sweet. I really, really do. And she also just never really was attracted to anybody that showed any interest if they did. And I just really love these two together in the book way more than I do the movie. Everything just makes more sense to me in the book and why they like each other. And I know books and movies are going to be different, but I just feel like these are two different people that we're seeing. And I am loving this way more than I thought I would. If you are somebody who has put off rereading the Twilight series because you're afraid you will not enjoy it as much as you did back in the day, I am going to try to convince you otherwise. This is such a good time. And there's so much information that I forgot. Maybe you don't forget, but I do. Books I read a year ago, I'll remember some things, but not in a lot of detail. That's why I book journal. I don't annotate like some people. I have a separate journal. But I am just amazed at how much I am loving this. And the events that happen in this book are so in different order than they are in the movie. I feel like I'm 60% in. We still haven't even heard about the nomads yet. It's just been a really fun time. I think I have about 200 pages left, so I probably will finish this and then come back and wrap up my final thoughts on Twilight. I have finished reading Twilight, and I am so glad that I decided to reread this for the 20th anniversary. My original score on Goodreads for Twilight was 3 out of 5 stars. This time around, it has gone up. It is 4 out of 5 stars. This book is not perfect by any means, but I understand a lot more now why this has stood the test of time. We can make fun of Stephenie Meyer for the sparkly vampire thing. But to be honest, she took vampire lore, something that was really, really well known and used in literature already, and she made an original lore herself. And I'm sorry, but if I saw somebody sparkling, I would become prey because I'd be like, what is that? I would be drawn to that. It is a great device to lure in something. It's like Dory and Marlin with the little light fish and Finding Nemo, right? I would become prey because that's weird. No one has seen someone sparkle like that, you know? Like, sure, maybe in the early 2000s when we had glitter everywhere, but I just think that, you know, it is kind of silly, sure, but I understand it. It makes sense. And being original, I think, is a risk, but I think it was a good one for her. Make fun of it all you want, but again, I would become the prey in that situation. I really would. I have mentioned a lot in this book talk about how I love Bella and Edward's banter and their flirtation so much more than I do the movie. There's one particular scene in this book that had me laughing for quite a while. It's the night after Edward stayed with Bella for the first time, and she's sitting on his lap. They're having a cute moment, and he tells her that it's time for her to eat. It's time for breakfast. And she goes, and Edward's like, that's not funny. And she's like, yeah, kind of was. And I loved that so much. I think my boyfriend thought that I was crazy because I was laughing so hard, but it is just so cute, the relationship that these two have with each other. And I'm really shocked how different the movie and the book are here. I have said many times, I do understand it's going to be different, but I do feel like we're looking at two different relationships and two different people in the movie and the book. Something else that I think the movie missed out on is the relationships that Bella has with the Cullens. I do remember that it's there, but it doesn't, again, come across as caring as in the book, if that makes sense. So with Jasper, for instance, when they're getting ready to take Bella away from the tracker, he sits there. Not only can Jasper control emotions, but he can feel them, and he can feel Bella's emotions in this moment. And he looks at her and he says, "You're wrong." And she's like, "What?" And he says, "I can feel what you're feeling, and you are worth it." And I almost cried when I read that. He just seems so protective over her and wants her to know that it's okay. Like, all of us here care about you. Even Emmett, his wife, right, doesn't like Bella at all. Thinks that all of this is just a bad thing for them as a family. But he enjoys Bella. He's like, she makes me laugh. I like her. I'm a protector. And there's actually a scene when he's running Bella into the house after they have encountered the nomads, and he carries her and guards her and protects her. And it's so sweet. And I just feel like it's there in the movies, but it's not. Does anybody know what I'm trying to say? Because I'm trying to find the words, and I don't know if I am coming across the way I want to right now. There are a lot of backstories of the Cullens that I also did forget. We had Carlisle, who was a preacher's son, who actually was a monster hunter before he became a vampire. I had totally forgotten that Esme had lost a newborn baby and had fallen to her demise before Carlisle found her. I did remember that Alice was in a mental institution, but had completely forgot that James at one point had actually tracked Alice. And she was turned by a doctor that worked in the mental hospital where she was staying. All information I had totally forgotten. And I just feel like the relationships that Bella has with them is really an important part of the story, because she's trying to become part of this family and this coven. And even a small thing, there's a prom at the end of the movie, and the siblings are at the prom with them in the book, but not in the movie. And that's just a small thing, but to me, it would have made a big impact to show their interactions with each other at the prom, and that they are a really cohesive unit. And it's not a big deal. It's just things that I think about. And even the scene at the end with James, I think, was way more intense in the book. I would have loved to see Bella evade Jasper and Alice in the airport like she does in the book in the movie. And the fact that she has to go to her home and call James from there to try to figure out her next steps from him. And even in the dance studio, he is just menacing. And I feel like in the movie, it didn't come across that way. Just like with Edward in the field, talking about how all of these things are dangerous about him when he's exposing himself to her. He just comes across so much more menacing than I feel like he does in the movie. And I know everybody has their different perspectives on things when they read a book and then obviously write a script and make a movie. And I know I've compared constantly throughout this book talk, but I just feel like this experience is way more intense. I feel like the movie just touches the tip, very, very tippy top of the iceberg of what's really going on here. And I will reread this many times in my life. I do plan on reading the entire series throughout the year, but I don't plan on picking up New Moon right away. I do have a lot of other books on my list that I want to get to since I have already read these. But if you haven't ever read or watched the movies, I'm sorry I spoiled so much for you in this vlog, but do it. If you are somebody who's only seen the movies, pick up the book. It's a completely different experience. And I do feel like a lot of the gripes people have about the movies is fixed in the book, because the characters, I feel like, are so different. So far, the only characters I feel are very similar in the movie is Esme, Charlie's pretty much the same so far, and Carlisle. Everyone else I feel like is a little bit different, or a lot different if we go with Edward and Bella, in my personal opinion. So down below in the comments, let me know, do you agree with anything that I've said about this? What are your thoughts on Twilight? Have you reread it recently? And let me know. I would love to be able to talk about Twilight with more people. I don't feel like I have a lot of people to talk about Twilight with, and I have gotten into this mindset now of just pure fangirl. I want to be able to talk about this like I did when I was 16. I'm excited, and I want to go to a movie premiere at midnight and dress up, and I want to go to a book release at midnight. I feel so bad that the newer generations don't have those things, because we had Harry Potter and the Hunger Games, the Maze Runner, the Divergent series. We had Twilight. We were able to do all these fun things, and I hope that another series like this happens, because I would be there for it, to just get those feels back. I hope you guys enjoyed this book talk, and I will catch you guys in the next video.